You have ultimate responsibility for your experience. What you experience, who you are, it's your responsibility. There's no one else who's going to fix it for you.
Richard Gere has been on a spiritual journey for the past 30 years. Alongside his Hollywood film career, he is a committed Buddhist. In this film, he explains his Buddhist faith. He shows how a man in the most public and glamorous profession of all lives by the disciplines of one of the most personally demanding of religions.
Making a film can be incredibly frustrating. You're under enormous pressure, financial, time, everything else. Cameras in your face, for 3 or 4 months. You don't get any sleep. Everyone else is under pressure too. So those are situations that people can continually be blowing up, getting crazy, getting hysterical. So it's those times in extremis that you really find out who you are.
Please welcome to the podium, Richard Gere, right up there. Come on, Richard.
If I could only be like Richard Gere. But as we said, it's the same. I'm living the same problems as everybody else. Superficially, it seems like I've got it knocked. But I'm still dealing with anger and hatred and jealousy and the rest of it. Basic ignorance.
And Richard Gere isn't the only one to discover that Buddhism can help people cope with these kinds of issues. After being locked in Asia for 2,500 years, it's now attracting Western celebrities.
It's so unusual to meet something which actually asks you what you think and actually helps you to think for yourself, rather than telling you what to think.
I did grow up a Christian. And I can say that my own explorations of Christianity, I found it to be incredibly compassionate. My parents were very compassionate people. But when you ask kind of difficult questions about the origin of the universe, about the nature of the self, which are basically philosophical/psychological concepts you're dealing with, there didn't seem to be a basis for discussion in Christianity.
Buddhism doesn't give simplistic answers. And I think anyone who is dissatisfied with the answers that we get from many of the more common religions, particularly from Christianity, where you get answers to the question, well, you go to heaven and, God cares about you and so on. People who are dissatisfied with that, or who are dissatisfied with the glib New Age answers, well, put this crystal under your pillow, or say these words, or take this herbal remedy. People who are dissatisfied with that will find in Buddhism something completely different.
Buddhism is not likely to have simple, general answers because it's a faith based on individual experience and responsibility.
I'm always going to be young and happy and beautiful, right? And rich and whatever. But if you put the mirror up to your life, you say, it's not true. That's not the way it is. Now, it doesn't make me depressed. It actually makes me smile in a way because you recognize the truth of it. You go, yeah. You have ultimate responsibility for your experience. There's no one else who's going to fix it for you. There's no creator God who's going to come down and make everything all right. There's no one else to plead to. You got to do the work on your mind. When you change your mind, you change. When you change your mind, the universe changes. But you're the only one who can do it. You can have help, wonderful teachers. You're the teachings of the Buddha. You're the teachings of Jesus Christ. The teachings of Muhammad. But you got to do the work. You are responsible. Which is very Western, is it not? You want to be a millionaire? You want to be a billionaire? You got to do the work. You want to learn to play the piano? You got to do the work. Very Western.
I think almost all human beings question the life all the time. I'd imagine it could be in the case of, say, somebody like Richard Gere, somebody who's got a lot of wealth and has everything that we, in a sense, aspire to. Wealth, security, they seem to have everything. I think it's a bit like, well, when you get all of that, is that enough?
It's usually the people who have the most who desire the most. I'm not saying this in respect to Richard. I'm just talking in general. As we indulge our desires, we create more desire. It's a vicious circle.
Some things we love, we want, desire, and I want this cookie. I desire this cookie, and this is really going to make me happy. And it does the first bite. You know, the first cookie maybe does. The second cookie, maybe not so much. Third cookie, fourth, fifth, 10th cookie, I'm going, I hate cookies. You know?
Part of the appeal of Buddhism is that it starts with the nitty-gritty frustrations and angst of 21st century life. It deals with the modern habit of being vaguely dissatisfied with everything.
The problem we have is that everything sticks to us, right? And it makes us heavy. That sound's sticking to me, you know, that's the time is sticking to me, the boom, boom, it's like, and then there's this little creature inside that's going, I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to carry all this stuff around. And anger starts to come up, and frustration, and blah, blah. And then someone walks in, and you lay that frustration on them. And the waves just keep going through and around us constantly. That's samsara. That's the world of frustration and illusion.
Suffering in that sense doesn't at all mean sort of pain or the very obvious kinds of suffering like that. It means more the suffering of wanting things and it not being true, wanting things to be different, hanging on to things, that kind of suffering. You still have pain. You still have sorrow. You'd still be sad when your friend dies or your parents die or something, you know, those kind of things don't stop. But they're not all bound up in this terrible, awful knot of self-cherishing, of wanting yourself to be other than it is.
Everyone gets depressed, everyone feels frustrated, everyone gets angry, everyone gets jealous, everyone gets, I mean, all those things. The suffering of change, you know, things are really good right now, but they're going to change. Maybe in an hour things are going to fall apart and they're not going to be great anymore, you know, or you know, my marriage is great now, maybe it's going to fall apart. Suffering of change.